Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of the Heart of Markness Led Zeppelin podcast. I'm Mark and I am talking to, or what I will be talking to, or what I did is I have spoken to. There we go. And you will soon hear my conversation with James Cook of Led Zeppelin News. He has a new subscription service on Substack where he does these deep dive journalistic investigations into things like the origin and ownership trail of the Royal Albert Hall film, which ties into the Bath 1970 film, and Led Zeppelin's 1977 tax structure, so they didn't have to pay any money on all that money they earned, and more and more and more. Jimmy Page's dragon suit. There's all kinds of things, all right? Let's jump in and listen to James. He's a good boy, and I like him very much. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hmm.
Hey, James.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's been quite the week. My gosh. Yeah, it's been a lot, but I've been looking forward to this chat for a while. So thank you for making time. It's much appreciated.
Oh, happy to do so. Boy, you have really come up with some neat stuff.
All by accident. All by accident. Yeah, no, I'm not going to claim there was some grand plan to figure out what happened. It's a complete happy accident was this news story about these suits. And it just sort of fell into my lap, and I thought, well, that's a fun one.
Nice. How did that fall into your lap? That was just something you came across?
Yeah,
Well,
so I've been very annoying. So I've had a month off between jobs. So I start my new job tomorrow morning, so, which is exciting, daunting. And I thought, well, in this month, instead of doing something sensible like relaxing or taking time off or anything fun like that, I'll devote that month to Led Zeppelin news. And as part of that, I've been sending out very annoying free information requests to all and sundry, just fishing for stuff, basically. And the V&A has this bizarre Egyptian suit. And I sent them a request being like, send me documents related to the Egyptian suit, not expecting anything substantive. And they came back with, 40 pages of files about, the swap for the poppy suit. I was like, what the hell? I have no idea. I wasn't asking for that. I was absolutely fascinated. So then I sent another request, and that's how the whole sort of thing came into my lap with the dragon suit and the poppy suit, and the sort of full story was there. I didn't know it happened. I wasn't looking for that. So it was a happy accident there.
that is so interesting. And that the suit, the I guess the Egyptian suit, not the poppy suit and not the dragon suit, that other one, it rang a bell. I think I might have seen a picture once or twice, but I hadn't heard about it. It kind of vanished in the mists of time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a strange one. So yeah, it's been fun to dig into that, and then went to the museum for comment, and they came back with this bizarre statement calling him Sir Jimmy Page, and he's not Sir Jimmy Page. So that was absolutely bizarre. So it's been a bit of a weird journey, but it feels to me like the most heart of Markness story that I could do. So that's why I thought, well, it's good for you and I to chat through this one.
I agree. Yes, and it's brilliant. And hey, kudos for the Substack idea.
Thank
Brilliant.
you. Yeah, it's been going really well. It's been quite nice to sort of experiment with, podcasts and little fun things. Or actually, the thing that did the best was like an analysis of like Robert Plant's solo career, like what projects are currently happening. I think like 10 or 12 people like paid for subscriptions off the back of that, which is really nice. So that says to me they don't want news from Led Zeppelin News, they want analysis, which
Yeah,
which you need to start doing.
that's excellent. And I love it. I love everything that you're doing. I love all those Robert Plant projects and Saving Grace. Oh my gosh, I hope he comes to the States because there's just something magical about that.
Yeah, I really like Saving Grace. I saw them Belfast in October, and it's
Yes,
a
that's right.
really special sort of musical outfit. You can tell he's really enjoying it. That's why he's trademarked it. The album's on its way. They released that single. I've heard it. It's very good. It's very interesting. It's not a live recording. It's a studio recording. So yeah, fingers crossed an album happens. I'm assuming next year at this point, not this year.
Brilliant. Oh, that'll be so great. I'm so glad that he's still creating compelling, brilliant, joyous content.
Yes, although there was I had to make an editorial decision today about Robert Plant, as there was a video of him in the street in Italy coming upon a Led Zeppelin poster, and someone says, what do you think when you look at it? And he was like, I don't care. It means nothing to me. And I was like, oh, am I going to write about that? Probably not.
Ooh.
And it was like very unguarded, candid comments about Led Zeppelin by Robert Plant, which comes after he's stacked the Saving Grace set list with 4 new Led Zeppelin covers. It's a little bit
Right.
awkward. And I thought, if I do a separate story about that, I could probably get tens of thousands of views, get a lot of people very angry. And I thought it's not really worth it to do that.
Yeah, it would be inflammatory kind of. And I mean, I think even a casual Led Zeppelin fan knows that that's how he feels.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't an interview setting, and he was probably just being a bit sort of flippant,
Yeah.
to seem like random people in the street sort of bothering him and asking him about it. So I thought, what, I don't really want to get in trouble. Also, because Robert Plant does have publicists who do reply to me. Like there is some level of like people there who I can talk to, and I don't really want to break down that fledgling relationship for the sake of one article there.
No, that's wise. Yeah, I could see that door being shut, and you don't want that.
Yeah. It's not the same with the other band members. I mean, I'm at the point where do I write a letter to John Paul Jones's accountant? I don't know. It's got to that point there.
I would so love. That's always been my little pipe dream, is to get an interview like this with Jonesy and just talk. But
Yeah, there's this mysterious Twitter account which is like at John Paul Jones, which I really think is John Paul Jones on Twitter. If you look at the people he follows, is like opera singers that I know he performs with. No one else knows he's done this opera.
interesting.
And like all the clues suggest it's him. And for a long time, that account followed 2 accounts. One was an obscure electronic music news website, which is very John Paul Jones.
Yes.
The other was Led Zepp News. He no longer follows Led Zepp News because Led Zepp News was hacked several years ago and turned into Caravan News, and they blocked John Paul Jones, which made him unfollow,
Oh
uh,
no.
which was a fun day. So yeah, I think he'd be the most willing to do a chat. It's really difficult to reach John Paul Jones.
I've discovered, does he even have representation anymore?
There's Sam, who runs the Led Zeppelin forum, also does his website. To my knowledge, there isn't like a manager
Mm.
there. Sam runs his online presence, but beyond that, I don't think there's anyone really doing it. There was that interview a while ago where they said, do you want to do another solo album? And he said, like, I can't be asked. Like, there's not much going on there. I bumped into his wife in a basement club in London and asked her about her. I was quite drunk. I don't really remember what I said. And she just laughed about all his various projects. So I'm not sure there's any sort of driving management team there.
Mm. He's so interesting, and I think of the triumvirate that's left, he would be the one that would probably be the least guarded and most candid about anything you would ask.
I think so. I think Robert Plant has this habit of sort of talking in riddles slightly
Yes.
and pivoting to jokes about a lot of things, and it's quite rare you'll get him to give a straight answer. I think John Paul Jones would give a straight answer. Jimmy Page, very difficult to reach. So yeah, it's difficult. And I think this story about Jimmy Page's suits is I would love to have talked to him about this. I imagine it's interesting to him, this saga. I don't think he's aware of their internal museum correspondence here that he would never have known. But it's just there isn't that relationship with him there.
Mm. That is a good angle, though. That might be a good angle to get a little bit of leverage if you can get some purchase, catch a corner of his interest, because that's not, it's not the hackneyed, when are you going to reunite? It's not going to be when's the next Zeppelin thing. It's something coming at him from an oblique angle that he may engage with.
I think so, and I think for me, I think I almost see it as like a trilogy of stories. There was the Peter Whitehead 1970 filming story, and then there was
Brilliant.
the 1977 sort of tax network story, and then this one. There's a free, multi-thousand word stories that are, journalism that's not being done about Led Zeppelin by and large. That I think hopefully people will pay attention to and think, hey, we need more of this. And that's me sort of putting my head above the parapet and saying, look, this is how it could be done. If you open the archives, if you chat to people, if you give us access, we could do really interesting things with the material that we know that the band has.
Absolutely. And that's the dream. just crack open that vault and
Yeah, I mean, one story that I've started writing but haven't got too far on is, and not a lot of people know this, in 2016, when the Stairway to Heaven copyright case happened in Los Angeles, in the trial, they played the tapes of Stairway to Heaven being written to the courtroom. Those
nice.
tapes, some of them have come out in bootlegs over time. And I've paid to get the transcript of Jimmy Page in court explaining what each tape is, narrating the writing process of Stairway to Heaven, being like, well, this is me showing it to John Paul Jones. That what you just heard is Robert Plant doing the lyrics. You can move through and explain out how this song was written because they have the Headley Grange tapes. And that's what they're referred to in the courtroom as the Headley Grange recordings. So they have all this material, which is absolutely fascinating. So stuff exists in the Led Zeppelin camp, but it's not being used or released or analyzed. It's sort of filed away, essentially.
Which is 100% their right, but so vexing.
It is vexing, and a question I get a lot is why do Led Zeppelin use, right? Like, the band has not really done anything since 1980, right? Is one way to look at it. And one of the ways that I answer that question is, well, you see that with Helen Grant selling her stake in the band, and the ownership of Led Zeppelin is going to change hands over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And who's to say that the new owners of the band's music and documents don't want to do something with it? I think we're at a point where we can start to see some movement there. And I think we saw that with a few months ago when Jimmy Page put out that demo on his website. I want to say it was a demo for the Rain song. I think you can correct me there, Mark, which is really interesting because it was Jimmy Page releasing a Led Zeppelin demo tape on his own personally, not through Led Zeppelin, hinting that there's this sort of archive of things to come, maybe, that didn't come out in the remastered album. So that was really interesting to me now.
I forgot about that. That was beautiful. That was an almost complete piece. And I remember the controversy over whether or not it was Jimmy playing the Mellotron parts. And
so my understanding is that was owned by Jimmy personally. It wasn't part of the Led Zeppelin estate because it was him doing everything at home. So he owned the copyright to it and he could release it himself through his website. And at the time I was told, look, there's more, this isn't one track. There's other stuff that he could release, but essentially just hasn't gotten around to doing it. And that to me is really interesting, that there is stuff there that there's no reason that can't be out in the world. So that's why, we should lobby hard for that, and fingers crossed, it does come out over time.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to see something like the Pete Townsend Scoop series. He released a series of albums in the 80s, maybe even up through now, of the Who demos and things that he's done. And like the Rain song, some of them are fully formed and fleshed out pieces that are then just transcribed over to the band. And oh my gosh, I would love to see Jimmy do something like that. Yes, we should lobby hard.
We should. And what I would say is, like, the band pays attention to fan reaction to stuff. There is a bit of a disconnect between, fans online talking on Facebook and the band. They don't really know that there's this real appetite and huge reception when this stuff comes out. And I've sort of, through sources on my network, said, look, people love this. They're eating this up. Do more, and have to try and explain that to people. And hopefully, if there is that reception, then more stuff does come out there.
My gosh, I would love that. If there's if you can point me in a direction where I can ring a bell, I will happily do so, because that would be the big deal.
Yeah, and I think that's why, looking into things like Jimmy Page's outfits, like what might be considered a niche story, I think if enough interest and time is spent looking into these things, then perhaps more comes out into the world. And I've seen that with, I'll write, for example, we did the 1970 filming story. More people come out of the woodwork, or perhaps someone I spoke to initially didn't remember much. They start to remember more. And I think the more spotlight is put on these things, that hopefully the more attention and material comes out.
That's brilliant. Would you mind doing just an overview of the Peter Whitehead story, just in case people who are listening don't know?
Yeah, 100%. So 1970, January 1970, Led Zeppelin perform at Royal Albert Hall, Jimmy Page's birthday. It's the night he meets Charlotte Martin. It's this amazing historic concert. They hired via Stanley Dorfman, who was the producer of Top of the Pops. They hired Peter Whitehead, the film director, to film the show. And that was it. It was just to film the show, kind of for their own use. Maybe they might use it for something down the line. They didn't really like the performance. It didn't go that well. So then they did Bath Festival later in 1970, big outdoor show. They were really excited for it. Flew in via helicopter, hired Peter Whitehead again to do it. He gets stuck in traffic, misses them arriving, but does shoot them on stage. And that footage, has emerged in part there. And we basically spoke to a lot of the people involved in that filming. My personal victory was I got Stanley Dorfman on the phone. He's in his 90s. He was, I think he was in hospital or something when I spoke to him. And he said, look, there was never a film about Led Zeppelin in the works in 1970. There wasn't this feature-length idea that has sort of come into myth over time. The band wanted the filming. We hired Peter Whitehead. That was it. And what we did was we obtained documents from Peter Whitehead's archives held at a university here in the UK, which were like the original film lab receipts from 1970, allowing us to analyze what was filmed and when, and sort of pieced all that together to tell the story of the filming in 1970, which just hasn't been done before. No one's ever looked into this. So it was really interesting to delve into that.
That was crazy. And then with that Bath footage coming out not too long ago, stellar footage. And that's one that I've been hearing about the 40 plus years I've been a fan, is that Bath is this amazing supernal performance where all the fates aligned. And to see it and to hear it, kind of, just it brings such joy and such a rapacious hunger for more. And just I just want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them and just figure out a way to get this released. Every other band on the planet can get it done, and these guys, oh my gosh, love them.
But... I mean, what I can say is on the Bath footage, there is some of it is on YouTube. Other bits of it, exist, but is not on YouTube. So there is more that, if you pay the license, you can purchase the right to view the Bath footage and use it in your own documentary or whatever. I hope it ends up in Becoming Led Zeppelin. I don't know for sure that it is. My understanding is the current cut of Becoming Led Zeppelin has interesting footage in it that wasn't in the original cut that was screened at Venice a couple of years ago. Hopefully we get some interesting things there.
Oh, that's wonderful. I forgot about that.
Yeah, a lot of people have forgotten about this film. I'm hoping that end of this year we'll start to see some movement around that. My understanding, based on a couple of sources, is there's some interesting stuff in this film now that perhaps wasn't there before when people viewed it. So I'm optimistic and I'm excited.
Yay. Do you have anything you can divulge?
I think if you read what I've been reporting recently on the filming in 1970, I think that probably points you in the right direction of what might be in that film. And that's probably as much as I can say there.
Excellent. So confirmed Pontiac 77. Thank you.
If only.
If only, no kidding. That is just, it's such, because of people like you and Eric Levy and these other folks who are just bringing a renaissance, a literal renaissance, to Led Zeppelin fandom. It's an ideal time to be a fan. Oddly enough, 50 years plus years after the inception and 40 plus years after the end. And
it is odd, yeah. And I was sat this morning writing the weekly Led Zeppelin news email, and there's the new Dallas 1977 video, there's the new Vancouver 1971 tape, and that's just in the past week. And that to me is kind of mind blowing that the pace of stuff coming out is still strong. There is still material coming out, and you can be a Led Zeppelin fan in the current time period and follow the news about the band. It's not like it's all in the past, and that to me is very exciting.
It's brilliant. I cannot wait to see. The next 5 years will probably be very interesting.
I think so. I think we'll find out, who buys Helen Grant's stake.
Yeah.
I don't think that will be. I imagine it'll be an investment firm. If you're an investor, what do? You lobby for stuff to be released, because you want to monetize that stake. You want albums to be sold and material to be put out there. Let's say Warren Grant sells his stake. Let's say, band members sell up as well. You start to have, quite heavy pressure for stuff to come out there. And we've never had that before. It's always been the band members and their estates controlling it and saying, that's enough, largely.
Now, the stake Helen had, was it 10%?
Yes, that's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
A significant chunk. I wonder, is that the same? You may not know. This is just, you know
Mm.
how like artists like Bob Dylan sell
Mm.
off their,
Yes.
is it that similar kind of thing, or is it a literal like you own a piece of the enterprise?
Yeah, so I dug into this because it was very unclear for a long time whether it basically includes like publishing rights and decision making over, where the music is used. My understanding is it's basically a chunk of the royalties. It's a 10% chunk of certain albums from Led Zeppelin and also Bad Company as well, which I found out
Oh,
there is
interesting.
yeah, which is really interesting and has never been reported. There was no decision making power in that 10% chunk. You can't buy that and start to say, hey, Jimmy Page, release this material. You can't do it. But what I was told is, you get a seat at the table, you at least perhaps could talk to them, whether it's worth the millions of dollars you end up paying for it. I don't know. I've spoken to people who have been in talks to purchase that stake. It's not very appealing to them because it's essentially you receive royalties every month. That's all it is.
Gotcha. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oof. So, what do you have on your plate, sir? Coming up,
What do I have on my plate? I had a
if
really
you can.
scary letter. Yeah, I can tell you. I had a really scary letter in the post about 2 weeks ago from the FBI,
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
which like terrified me because it was just addressed to me. It was like James Cook, and it was from the Department of Justice and the FBI, and it like came to my door. I was like, oh God, what have I done? And I opened it up, and it was so basically what I've been doing is I want to find out who stole the money from the Drake Hotel in
Oh
1970.
yes.
Because I was between jobs for a month. What else am I going to do? So I filed three different records requests with the FBI related to the Drake Hotel, and every single one of them they said we don't have anything, which is frustrating. So they don't hold any records on Richard Cole, Peter Grant, or on the robbery itself. The New York Police Department will come back to me in December and let me know whether they have anything. Although in Mark Blake's book about Peter Grant, he claims or cites someone claiming the NYPD files have been lost, which is interesting to me.
Hmm.
So I want to dig around on the Drake Hotel robbery in 1973 because it's interesting to me, especially in light of the story I did about the band putting together this network in 1977 to reduce their tax bill. You start to view this potential robbery of $180,000 in cash in perhaps a different light.
Oh, fascinating.
Because if the
Oh,
money was taken out of the US, physically removed, then no taxes were paid on those concert takings to the IRS, which starts to be, not a legitimate business tactic, but you can see why there would be a business reason to do that by the band.
oh my goodness. Wow, that is a gutsy move, but I can see them doing that.
You can see them doing it, and that's alluded to in Bob Spitz's Led Zeppelin biography. He cites several sources who told him it was an inside job. That was his claim, which is interesting. And I'd love to figure out how close can we get to solving that. Especially relevant is the fact that Richard Cole is now dead. You cannot libel the dead in the UK. You can't do it. So we shall see.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Yes. I had never I'm going to reread that Substack about the taxes and in the light of what you just said.
Yeah, so that was a story that's up on the website, is that one about, so this is like this network of businesses, and it's this incredibly intricate pioneering network of companies that was put in place, as it seemed put in place for Led Zeppelin's 1977 US tour to allow them to basically pay no tax on all the ticket sales from that tour. And they got the US government to sign off on its legality, which is really interesting. They went to great lengths to make sure the US government was happy and it was legal to not pay tax, which is very interesting to me when you reconsider the Drake Hotel robbery, which was, I think it was 3 nights, Madison Square Gardens ticket takings were in that box, and the money vanished, which is fascinating to me.
That's just crazy. That sounds like a heist movie.
Yeah, and there's various sort of claims about, a hotel porter vanished to Jamaica or Puerto Rico, and it doesn't really make sense. These crazy stories and explanations that have come out. There were 2 keys to the safety deposit box, one held by the hotel, one held by Richard Cole. That's it. There were two keys, so it's one or the other.
Yeah, Occam's razor.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the current story. Working on other things, looking at the Mr. Jimmy film came out 2 days ago, September 1st. Mr. Jimmy came out. I've seen it. It's great fun. It's really good. I need to write up a review of that. I spoke to Mr. Jimmy. I spoke to the film's director. I need to actually sit down and write that. But it's a really interesting film about obsession and the nature
Mm.
of it, and also sort of cultural differences between the US and Japan.
It looks amazing. I mean, he's of course an incredible performer, and he
Mm.
nails it. He captures that the vibe, that essence, which is really interesting because it could very easily go in a satirical kind of Elvis impersonator way, but it doesn't.
Yes, and the film has that as well, in that the film treats it very seriously and intentionally doesn't stray into like comedy and satire. And that's what I sort of said to the director, and he said, "Yeah, I love Led Zeppelin, I love bootlegs, I love this obsessive tribute band culture, and it holds out very seriously as a debate on musicianship and collecting and." What I'd love to find out, I'm a certain age now, I'm 29 with a wife and a kid, is what does his wife feel about him moving to America to try and become Jimmy Page? It seems that she's pretty supportive, but that's what I want to know.
Oh
So
yeah, wow. That'll be a discussion after dinner.
mm. So yeah, that's what's on my plate at the moment. The Dragon and Poppy Suit story hung around for a while because it's 73 pages of letters, about Jimmy Page's clothes to delve through and sort of get the timeline of what happened and when, and that took a while, but it's nice to get that one out in the world now.
It's remarkable, and we, the fandom, owe you a lot of thanks for actually coming up with and creating, using honest and true journalistic practices, these
Mm.
real, solid, canonical, authoritative articles on all this really cool stuff that is so professionally put together. You're doing all the legwork, and it's just a joy to see what comes out next. I love it.
Well, thank you, Mark. No, I appreciate that. And I think for me, it's in part a reaction to, like, if you Google Led Zeppelin, you get a load of crap come up
Mm-hmm.
from like blogs being like, the one song Robert Plant hated. And it's, an interview you gave 15 years ago, taken out of context. Like, there's a lot of bad journalism about Led Zeppelin around, especially at the moment with, a vacuum of new material or interviews coming out. And I think this is in part me trying to sort of course correct that and say, actually, you know what? There are interesting stories to tell. And I think, I'd welcome, if anyone has ideas on what we should look into or wants to collaborate. I published a piece recently on the filming in Shepin Studios in 1974, not written by me. Someone else wrote that. And that was really nice to have someone else on the website digging into a story. We published a previously unseen photo of the band being filmed in 74. So if people have ideas or tips or things they want to sort of dig into, I'm all ears on how we can collaborate and work together on that.
Beautiful. And if someone listening does have a tip or an idea, how would they get that to you? Just the Twitter?
Email is probably easiest, which is ledzeppnews@gmail.com. Drop me a note. Let's talk. Figure out, are there I'll give you an example. So the story about tax in 1977 came about because someone nudged me and said, "Hey, look at this Facebook post. You missed this company related to Led Zeppelin, which was this SNL Dutch business." And that was it. That was the tip. Look at this. Here's an interesting thing. And I go down the rabbit hole from there, and hopefully good things come out. Not always, but hopefully. So even if it's just a nudge of, "Hey, did you know about this? Or have you ever thought to look into this?" That sort of thing actually is really useful.
Neato. I wonder if there's anything. One of my personal things is I would love to hear something from the, I think, January 77 rehearsals at Manticore Studios.
Mm.
All those cool rockabilly looking pictures and things.
Yeah, one of my sort of dream stories to write would be like, here's how we got hold of this tape, and you very rarely get a proper account of, for example, the Led Zeppelin 2 multi-track
Yeah.
tapes came out. Like, the story I remember is like there was like a deal on the table, and the bits that came out were like the sample being like, "Hey, here's the proof that we've got it." They were leaked and the entire deal fell apart. And I love that sort of insidery stuff. And I'd love to find, whether it's the rehearsals at Manticore, or whether it's the, Led Zeppelin Black Sabbath jam, like
Yeah.
the engineer who's got these tapes squirreled away, and how far can we get on putting them out into the world?
And that Fairport convention gig they did at the Troubadour, maybe? I
Yeah,
can't
sounds
remember.
right. These big sort of white whales almost. Like, how close can we get to putting them out in the world? And sometimes the sort of journalistic route in is perhaps better than the sort of trader or hoarder route in. Like, I've found that emailing people saying, "Look, I'm a journalist. I'm writing about this. I'm not here to steal your tapes or sell them on or whatever. I'm just here to put the light of the day onto this after 50 years." Sometimes that shakes things loose that other approaches wouldn't.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah, not going in with that kind of vampiric, shiny-eyed hunger of give me the tape.
Yeah,
Yes, just that's
it can
brilliant.
be tough. I referred to, there was this woman named Jenny McPhee who, tried to do a deal in the 90s to release Peter Whitehead's Royal Albert Hall footage. And she was hinted at in some of the documents. So I spent a while trying to track her down, eventually found her in retirement in Thailand, and emailed her. And she came back being like, "You win the award for, detective work for tracking me down." Her name's different. She'd split from her husband, changed her name, moved to Thailand, and retired. I was like, "Hello, on to Zeppelin." And you could see she was like, "Who the hell is this guy, and how has he found me?" And eventually, said, "Look, I'd love to know what happened in the 90s." And her memories are so vivid of Peter Whitehead double crossing her, essentially,
Oh,
because she put a deal on the table to, in the 90s, which is way before 2003, sell the Royal Albert Hall footage to Led Zeppelin so they could release it. Without her knowledge, Peter Whitehead, during the Page and Plant tour, sells it to a private collector, someone else. So then she calls him up and says, "Hey, Peter, you ready to do the deal with Led Zeppelin?" And he's like, "Oh, actually, I've done a deal with someone else." And
oh,
she said, "I can still remember where I was sitting when that phone call happened." She said, "I felt so stupid, because he had done the deal behind my back, essentially." And that's these great sort of vivid remembrances come out sometimes when you say, "Look, I just want to shine a journalistic light on this period there."
that's amazing. Dude, you have some good stories, my friend.
I mean, like, there's a lot of good stories. There's a lot of good stuff to come out still. It takes a lot of work. Freedom of information requests have given a lot of interesting stuff recently. I'm kind of out of ideas. Where do I send these requests to? What do I do? I've exhausted the FBI. Maybe there's other places I should look. I don't know. But if people have ideas, I am very happy to work on this stuff.
Excellent. You hear that, everybody? Think of some things. Think of some good ideas. Nothing stupid, and send it. Send it to
That is
James.
stupid too. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. Yay. Brilliant, my friend. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we eject?
I'm curious your thoughts, Mark, on the tunic that was donated to the V&A, because to me it's the most bizarre and absurd outfit, and I've no idea where it's from and what it is. And you are the expert on all things Jimmy Page, so I to you. So basically, when Jimmy Page wanted a dragon suit back in 1989, he did a swap and got the dragon suit back in return for this absurd tunic and a pair of snakeskin boots. And it's described as stage worn. And to the life of me, I have no idea where this thing was worn.
I
It's
don't think
crazy.
it was.
Right. I mean, I assume it's like late 60s, like Yardbirds. It looks bizarre. It's got this cocktail glass on it, like a leopard's head, love hearts. It's the most bizarre outfit in the entire world. And I'd love to know more about it.
It is. And I mean, Jimmy, when left to his own devices, will definitely dress himself garishly.
Yeah.
But that one, yeah, that's got to be 60s. That doesn't have any of the cool esoterica. It's just kind of
It's just weird 60s stuff. So
yes.
I don't know if someone out there has, a collection of photos of Jimmy Page and the Yardbirds, and this appears in this. I'd love to know. That to me was, and it kind of annoys me, right? Because I want to explain what this thing is. I don't know when this was worn, so that's a sort of mystery out there. I believe it's currently on display somewhere in the UK as like being worn by Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. I don't think they know where it was worn either. It's all a bit of a mystery.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you heard that, folks. Let's find out when that tunic was worn. I'm going to look into it too because now I'm curious.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
will
So
solve this mystery.
yeah, I love a good mystery. So anything like that, we should dig into it. And feel free to ping me on stuff. It's good fun. Let's up use this good fun is the way I would look at it. There's so much stuff coming out. There are so many things to dig into. It's almost like prioritization at this point. Like, what's the thing that we can actually deliver and get out into the world now?
That's a nice place to be. That's
Yeah.
so that's so heartening to hear that after so many decades, there's still rich veins to mine.
There are for sure, and I think you see that with Eric Levy and Led Zeppelin film and the Dogs of Doom group and the torrent, which is perhaps not the best word of tapes now. There's a huge amount that has come out and is still to come out, and that to me is very exciting. So yes, if it's a state of the union for Led Zeppelin, I would say that unofficially there's things going on. Officially, well, forget it, but there's independent happening.
Which is all we can expect from that ragtag band of misfits we call Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, they meet every quarter, I believe, and sit around and do something. I don't know what. Release me t-shirts. Who knows?
Don't forget the skateboard.
Oh yes, yeah, snowboard and the shoes that came out for the 50th anniversary. Yeah, I was going to write like a review of Led Zeppelin's 50th anniversary and thought, no, that's a bit too mean and negative.
I can imagine some bridges burning.
Yes, very much so.
Excellent. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for talking with us. And if there's anything that we didn't cover, or if there's anything you don't want me to say, let me know. I'll chop it out.
No, we're good. It's always a pleasure to check in, Mark, following our sort of previous chat. I hope everything is well with you, and thank you for giving me the time to come on and chat.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it. Yay. All right. Well, I'll get this edited up and get it posted maybe today, if not definitely tomorrow. And
yeah, whenever works, drop me an email. So I'll sort of make sure to share the link and things like that. I'm going to send it weekly now. So it'll probably be in the next week's email, but I put it on Twitter and Facebook sort of whenever it's up. Just flag it with me and I'll make sure to share it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, look, Mark, I'll leave it you there. I know you're still, well, I don't know. Are you hungover or not? I'm not sure.
A little bit fuzzy.
Very good. Very good. It could be worse. Could be worse. Well, I better go to bed. It's gone 9 p.m. here, and I start a new job tomorrow, so I better be bright and bushy-tailed in the morning. So I shall leave you to it, Mark, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and best of luck at your new job.
Thank you very much. Mark, we'll chat soon via email, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Heart of Markness Led Zeppelin podcast. That was cool. There's no one else doing what he's doing out there. He's taking his legitimate journalistic chops and applying them to the Led Zeppelin situation that we have before us, which is 3 old men never getting anything done. What the fuck's happening? Why does it take so long? I love this. For $5 a month, just like Patreon, except it actually delivers deeper. It's a subscription service. Substack. Look them up, ledsup.com or Ledsup News, Substack. $5 a month gets you all these great stories. They are very, very good. I can't say enough about him. James is a great human being. He loves the band. He's very, very smart, and he's approaching things in an angle that hasn't been used before, and it's yielding great results, much like Dogs of Doom did. So yay for this new blood, yay for James, yay for everything. Hooray! Hope everybody's happy. I will be back Thursday with a Led Zeppelin podcast. Hope you enjoy this. And subscribe to James. He's awesome. Real great resource for the community. Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody. Be good to yourselves and each other. Adios.